Catherine Clark is an experienced board director, CEO and senior executive with a background in government, sport and management consulting and a passion for achieving results through building high-performing teams and organisations. Catherine became the CEO of Netball Queensland and the Queensland Firebirds in 2015, and under her leadership, the Firebirds, who are a netball team, have won 2 premiership titles, and they've built a new $44 million state-of-the-art state netball centre here in Queensland. Sponsorship has increased by over 400%, and over the past 4 years, they've embraced a highly successful business transformation project. Catherine brings her strategic and innovative mindset to the ECCO Think Tank to talk about the opportunities available to professional sports, to this professional sport industry now and beyond this crisis. So welcome, Catherine. I'm just going to unmute you.
Good morning. Thanks for having me. Wonderfully virtually to be with you, Vicky.
You too. We're actually not too far away from each other. We're both in Brisbane, which is nice. So let's get straight into the questions. We've only got 20 minutes with you. So first of all, I'd love to hear your recognition of some of the issues and challenges that exist now within professional sport.
Okay, so for us, I guess I've got 2 hats from a professional sport perspective because we are a professional club with the team competing in our Suncorp Super Netball, but we're also, we manage Nissan Arena. So we are the venue host for the Brisbane Bullets and for World Cup volleyball events. So we kind of, are living in 2 domains and can see the impacts of COVID-19 from 2 perspectives. I think the first one, which I think sometimes flies under the radar as we look at operational impacts, is purely safety of people. The current issue still remains. This is a global health crisis where Queenslanders, we're quite used to natural weather event crisis. So, cyclones and bushfires, and we have built up the ability to have contingency plans and protocols. However, in this case, our sport is all about bringing people together. In a global health pandemic, we are the risk. We carry, the virus which could actually harm those that we love the most. So I think that for Netball Queensland, Queensland Firebirds, we can't lose sight that that continues to be the biggest issue we face is how do we stop the spread? How do we change what we're doing to minimise the risk of transmission? So that's an ongoing issue, and where we think we're actually quite good at a crisis, this has presented us with, okay, didn't think about that. What does it look like when you're faced with almost a humanitarian crisis where the stakes are so high that the speed, scale and human cost of this must be front of mind for us. The other ongoing issue as a professional club is leading in that VUCA world, volatile, uncertain, complex, ambiguity. We've got our playing group and our coaches that have had an amazing pre-season, really tough. We came off a really tough year last year, did a high performance review. So these are like caged thoroughbred horses. They really want to go out there, and we have to, I think as leaders, make sure we're always managing not just the business aspects, but the human aspects of the emotional toll that this takes on people, expectation, our fans, how do we remain emotionally connected even though we're socially isolated? So there's been, that's an ongoing challenge for us, even though we're starting to see light at the end of the tunnel. Working with our sponsors and partners who have been amazing. We're being really blessed in that regard. As we then now front and center turn our attention to recovery. So what does that look like whilst maintaining the past 2 points, safety first, leading through that VUCA world where we've got ongoing communication requirements, but how do we plan our way? We've just finalised our guidelines for return to play for elite, and we're just waiting for sign off from the Chief Medical Officer. So how do we then create certainty where we can? These are the protocols, reduce the ambiguity, but always prepare our club for pivoting. Should a second wave happen and we must respond. We need to be prepped for that and have that in our mindset.
Yeah, and I think that you've really summarized that so well. And I think that must be the thing. And that's one of the reasons we did this conference, is this is actually so multifaceted, and it affects every single one of us in some way or in many ways.
Yeah,
And,
absolutely.
yeah. So turning, I guess, a more positive, not positive, yeah, a more positive lens on things. What do you feel are the current opportunities within professional sport? So while we're actually in, you know, a stage 3 lockdown, or, you know, this sort of level of isolation?
Yeah, we have a saying in our organisation. It's kind of over the last 5 years been woven into our DNA, which is don't waste a good crisis. And it was actually a board member, Mark McLeod, who first coined it at a board meeting. And I think actually it is about looking at the positives, Vicky, because we'll always learn. We can't ever stop the fact that we'll be facing crisis. That's just going to happen. But I think going into it with the mindset of this is going to teach us something, and it certainly has. The brute force of necessity shifts our focus, and it makes us learn in places that we, inertia means that we wouldn't have gone into. So the number one thing for us around the current opportunity is increasing digital skill sets and the uptake and utilisation of technology. And that applies across our 3 arms of our business: Netball Queensland, vast community, through to the Firebirds in the elite space, and Nissan Arena. So we've got athletes that are training remotely, and we've got athletes in different states and territories. Kimmy Jenner's up in Townsville, Gabs is down in Sydney. What it means is that players are taking individual accountability and responsibility, which is a wonderful thing. Often professional sport gets criticised for creating too much of a bubble. Personally, coming into netball, one of the most humble sports you'd ever find for the standard of athleticism and sport, we don't have too much of that bubble factor. We haven't got enough money going through our sport. However, I think all of us, getting athletes to take individual responsibility, coaches, fabulous. This is that test now. Can we do this apart yet together? Clarity of the game plan to keep a geographically dispersed playing group on the same plan. Coaches learning to do one-on-one sessions, group sessions via Teams, for us, Microsoft 365 Teams. That's a fantastic skill, which we would not have done that if we had not been socially isolated as we have been. So I think there's a whole capability and capacity improvement outcome from this crisis. And I think for the players to be forced to come up with really creative ideas of how to pull together. And our girls have been coming up with some crackers, to bring levity, but also to make sure that the bond is strengthened through the crisis. And that's the opportunity, because it galvanizes you together.
Yes. This irony of disconnection in a physical sense does provide the impetus for a different type of connection, where we're not relying on the convenience of, just being around. We actually have to consciously communicate and connect like we're doing now. This is out of our comfort zone. This isn't what we do as a business, but we need to feel part of something and not feel isolated and disconnected from our community. So.
Yeah, and there's nowhere to hide. I think that's to me, I come from a sporting background and elite sport. I love the fact that it takes everyone. There's no passage on this. You can't not turn up or not show up fully. You've got to get through this. You've got to unite. And if you've got your plan and it's clearly communicated, what we've proven to ourselves is that we can stick to that, and we can succeed, and we can meet our targets as long as we come together and keep checking in, keep looking after each other.
I love that. That leads me perfectly to the next question, which is, in this, so the reason we came up with this conference is I was having a moment of panic, at the start of March, when everything was very confusing. And my partner posted a meme or a post on Facebook, and it said, every crisis has 3 things: an end date, opportunities, and lessons. And I hung on to that first, and I said, an end date, that means it must end at some point. So we've heard a lot of people talking about how the world has changed forever and things won't be the same as they were, so it'll be a new normal. Within that new normal, whatever that might be, you might have your own thoughts on that. What opportunities do you think will exist for sport, for professional sport then, after the crisis ends?
I think at a social level, and we're all humans, so letting go has to be to me and for me, the biggest thing is that you can't control this. So wanting that date of, can we resume on the 1st of May? Can we resume on the 15th of May? Can we resume? We don't control this. So we have to alter, we have to adapt, we have to stop fighting and focusing our efforts on the things that are driving us mad and refocus. So the ability to step back, it's like a muscle. The more we do it, and that will serve us on the netball court, that will serve us at a boardroom table, strategy, and as a mum, because that's what I've got, homeschooling. I've got a 3-year-old and a 6-year-old, managing. I've never been on so many Zooms, Skypes, go-to meetings, you name it, and juggling all of that and just going, do you know what? I need to stop just altering my old world and trying to cram it into this new environment. I need to let go and come up with something different. And the minute you do that, you transform. And if it's not right at the top, it can't be right anywhere else in your business. So leaders have to model that. You have to be okay and show your team the way. And I think, or let them show you and you adopt that. But that for me was the biggest thing. And then being vulnerable, opportunities for leaders to be able to say, do you know what? I've had a really tough week. I'm feeling this. I can't hug any of you. I've had to stand down 12 staff and 16 on reduced hours. It doesn't matter whether I'm talking about Firebirds or, our employees in our club. That takes a toll. And just by being open with your crew and saying, it's okay to be hurting right now, but I'm telling you because I trust you and I would be giving you a hug if I could. I think the bond, we have come together. This club culture has strengthened, and that will be a benefit post COVID-19 because we've shown what we're like under pressure. We've shown what we're like in a crisis. And I think that works, on the court and off the court. But I think stepping back from that sort of the very individual basis, the greatest social experiment, Vicky, in blended work environments, we can work from home. It's possible. Trust your staff, they'll be fine and they'll put in the hours if they're juggling homeschooling and washing and whatever else is going on. I think this has been a real gift for the Australian business community to really, let's not go backwards. Let's make sure post COVID-19, if we've worked, and our organisation was ready, so we moved everyone late. It's been fantastic. I think productivity and that resilience in your crew actually you come out stronger. So I think that social experiment around workplaces will definitely be for netball, something that we carry forward, and I hope the industry does because we've probably not been that great at it in the past. And the other thing for me post obviously is the technology transformation. Brutal force of necessity means we have changed the way that we work. And now our task is to make sure we don't slide back into the comfort zone of the way it was, and that we can, even if it's things like, I know this sounds small, but meetings, if we can do it online, we don't have to fly, pay for travel and accommodation. Let's put that money back into our sport if we can continue to meet, more often than not, using digital platforms, because we've proven we can.
Yeah,
so
exactly. They're perfect. And I think, we were already very much an online business, but there was definitely a perception that online was a plan B or, a slightly inferior option.
Yes.
But I think, and as you say, there are so many silver linings, and with full respect to the people who are suffering in different ways through this. But there are some incredible silver linings that we may be able to contribute in a positive way to the environment through reducing the amount of travel that we do. And safety, again, if we're reducing the number of cars on the road and planes in the sky, that's a safety consideration. So it's quite, while we always want to respect the suffering that's going on, when we start to look at the silver linings, they're abundant and yeah, it's quite incredible. So
Yeah, and I think it is that balance. What you just said then is one that's really important. It's about taking both. Because if we focus on one at the expense of the other, you lose perspective.
yeah,
You know, because there's definitely people hurting in our community, our members. You know, there's many tough things happening. We're not actually going to be able to be in a good mindset to carry our club through if we can't get our mind to go, right, what are the learnings? How do we make sure we build a better future out of the learnings?
yeah, exactly. You touched on it, but I thought I might just ask again, is there an opportunity that you have found or created for yourself on a personal level during this crisis?
Definitely, I have explored dimensions of Microsoft 365 that I would never have done should I have had an option. And to be honest with you, it's the best thing that ever happened in terms of professionally sitting, you know, not being probably that digital native where we all had phones at primary school. We didn't. With high school, they were coming in. But I think that Microsoft 365, we have these packages, and most organisations I know do, but we use about 10%, 20% at best. And so personally having to work through and then discovering so many hacks and a capability that's in there for different parts of our organisation to capitalise on, that's huge. And we will keep doing that now. We've actually built up a learning program for our staff. An induction program will come to make sure that we don't lose that. So it's for me, but it's our exec team. As a mum, the homeschooling, the ability to see my kids, the impact that has on them, talking to them about my work, being able to be on an exec team meeting and Magnus comes up and shows me his drawing of the Firebirds logo or something. There is just some really good stuff in there about grounding you. As I'm a mum and I'm a CEO and I'm this, that and the other. I'm a board director of an NSO where we were planning on Tokyo.
Yeah.
So, you know, I think it's really good when you've got your kids around. They are just the greatest leveler. And having those conversations with them as a personal growth, you know, absolutely that's been a big one. The other one I'd say, Vicky, from a CEO hat, is the talent strategy. I've definitely written quite a bit of reflection on moving forward as a CEO in my practice around what are the skills we're going to be needing to look for in the future for Netball Queensland, Queensland Firebirds. What kinds of skill sets and the capability of employees at every level to deal with a VUCA world. I suspect that when we go through our workforce planning for the future, that is going to have a much greater focus than it has, or be more clearly articulated and probably have higher weighting, because we're going to need it. You know, we're evolving fast anyway, but what this pandemic has shown, the speed and the scale of it, and the digital transformation that will leave us changed, that's going to have an impact on our talent strategy.
Thank you. And I've just got a question from the audience, if you don't mind being put on the spot.
Sure.
Bit of a tough one, actually, but it's a really important one, and I'm sure you'll have some thoughts on it. How long will productivity last? So you said that the productivity, and I've had the same experience, that productivity is actually great at the moment, but do you feel that there's a potential for burnout?
Definitely.
Yeah.
So I think that's whoever asked that, fantastic question. And I'm going to put my hand up and say I'm right there.
Yeah, that was Craig Johns that asked that question.
Thanks, Craig. And as I said to you, a couple of weeks ago, I actually expressed, we had town halls, so every one of our staff piled in on a big Teams meeting, and I actually just shared with them I was really struggling that week. You know, there's a fair bit of stuff going on. The intensity of the day plans, you're doing at least a 12-hour day. You've got just a hamster wheel of calls, and they're quite exhausting because you can't read people as easy as when you're face to face. So you're really focused. Well, I know I am. We need to take breaks. And so the learning for me was, how do you then unplug your people from the new digital world that has now come into their home. That is, I'm researching that at the moment. So I've been looking at some articles and trying to look at trying to find some studies around how people have made that possible. But quite literally, it comes down to, you know, uninstalling Outlook from their mobile phones, things like that, where to get our people to take a break and unplug, we now need it not to be ubiquitous in their home or on their handset. I think it is a big risk, the same as mental health though. I think sport has a massive role in the spiritual recovery of Australia, because sport is so enmeshed in our fabric and in our psyche. We're going to have to give ourselves a bit of love to unplug, and the intensity of what we've gone through, everyone, including definitely the leaders in our organisations, need to lead by example.
Thank you. I'm going to be listening to this recording again, because as you're interviewing, you don't take stuff in as you would an audience member. And I think there's a few points I want to take from this. So Catherine, thank you so much. We've come to the end of our session with you, and I feel like we could have talked for a lot longer. There's some beautiful things for you to share, and we invite you to stay for the rest of the session, and also we'll be inviting people to get in contact with you if they want to find out more and be in touch. So thank you ever so much.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. See you soon.